Jalen Duren fouled out of the Detroit Pistons' first win, and the Pistons really played well in the minutes with Isaiah Stewart on the floor. So does that mean the Detroit Pistons have a Jalen Duren concern? We'll talk about that and break it all down in today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And also, Locked On Pistons now has a newsletter. Introducing Locked On Pistons Daily Newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with an all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. Well, I want to say happy Halloween to everybody. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys are probably absolutely shocked. Darth Koo is back. You may be wondering, why is Darth Koo here? The Pistons just won a game simply for Halloween. Nothing bad, it's going to be a Halloween tradition. Every year we're going to bring Darth Koo out. So it's Halloween. I'm recording this on, obviously, Halloween. So that's the only reason why Darth Koo is out. Also, I've had a few of you guys ask me, like, Koo, how do you get, like, this red light to reflect towards you to make it like, Vader's red lightsaber? It's just this thing I had that my wife got me. It's a little dirty, but it's the Locked On Pistons podcast thing she bought me. I made it red and it just reflects on me. But anyways, okay, let's get into the podcast. Enough with the Darth Koo stuff. All right, so later on, I want to talk about Jaden Ivey, who's playing extremely well, and talk about why he's playing so well. And also, later on, we'll preview the Pistons game against the New York Knicks coming on Friday night. But let's go ahead and talk about this whole discussion around Jalen Duren. The Detroit Pistons won their first game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, the Sixers did not have Embiid. They did not have Paul George either. But the Pistons need wins in any ways possible. There's no such thing as a bad win for the Detroit Pistons, so they'll take this win gladly. But in this game, Jalen Duren completely fouled out. He only played 11 minutes of action. And the Pistons played, to be honest, extremely well with Isaiah Stewart on the floor in place of him, which now has, it's crazy because after the game, I expected to see a lot of people celebrating. And what I saw from almost everyone in the Pistons community was immediately the discussion of, is Jalen Duren a problem? Should the Pistons look to move on from Jalen Duren? Is Isaiah Stewart the better starter? That was where the discussion immediately went, so I have to address it and talk about it myself. There's two things I want to hit on with this. We're going to hit both sides of this. In defense of Jalen Duren, this is what I'll say in defense of Jalen Duren. One, it's only 5 games. It's incredibly small sample size for you to be trying to make any grand statements and final conclusions, I would say. That's number one. And number two, if you listen to the podcast in the summer, you'll remember that I spoke about all the time when it came to Jalen Duren, that he played his best defense when he had good defenders in front of him. When he had a Killian Hayes, when he had an Asar Thompson and Isaiah Stewart all starting with him, he looked his best when he had defenders around him. And obviously he did not look good at all when he didn't have defenders around him. And what the Pistons are running right now is a lineup and really a roster full of non-defenders. There's not a defender on this roster really unless you want, obviously Stu. Let me not say on the roster. There's Stu, and then the only other defender is Asar, who's not cleared to play. So they don't have really any defenders across the board. No, legit defenders on this team. And the lineup that he's playing with is a lineup of bad defenders. It's good offense. It makes sense offensively, but the lineup he's playing with does not make life easier for him defensively. And for a young big man that we've seen play better when he has good defenders in front of him, and we know really struggles on the defensive end, it's not making life easier for him. And to support these numbers, I tweeted this out earlier. The other thing we talked about in the offseason was the Pistons needing to find out Can Jalen Duren with Ausar Thompson and 3 spacers, can that work? We had a brief sample size with Simone Fontecchio, which we talked about all the time. They had a +4 net rating with Kate Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Simone Fontecchio, Ausar Thompson, and Jalen Duren. So a brief sample size that it could work, but nowhere near a large enough sample size to believe it would work. You get what I'm saying? So, but last year, in the minutes that Jalen Duren did play with Ausar Thompson, the defensive rating, so actually let me do it in reverse. Jalen Duren without Ausar Thompson on the floor last year, his defensive rating was 122.23. Horrific. But when Ausar Thompson was on the floor with him, defensive rating was 113.05, which you will absolutely take. So the question here for the Detroit Pistons, again, is this. Ausar Thompson obviously seems to be the glue that will make everything work defensively. We've talked about it all offseason. Any lineup with him on the or any Piston lineup that succeeded defensively had him in the lineup. So they need to figure out, okay, Ausar Thompson helps Jalen Duren defensively. He makes him better defensively. Can we make a lineup that works enough offensively to where it's worth it defensively? That's what they have to figure out. Again, we had a brief sample size with it, with Simone Fontecchio, but we haven't really gotten a legit sample size. With Jaden Ivey shooting, who we'll talk about later, shooting 40% from 3, with Kate Cunningham shooting 40% from 3, and also, by the way, we talked about it a little bit in that last episode, but I got the full numbers here for you. Kate is shooting 39% right now on pull-up threes on nearly 5 attempts a game. Extraordinary. With those two guys taking, if it looks like they are for real taking this leap as shooters, plus Tobias Harris in the lineup, that would give you more belief that that's enough spacing to make it work in the half court offensively, especially if Ausar has improved at all, to make it work defensively. That's the defense for Jalen Duren. Now, the opposite end of the spectrum is this. Again, this is an incredibly small sample size. This is just 5 games. Keep that in mind. However, with it being this monumental of a gap, it's hard to not notice it. Isaiah Stewart's on-off difference for the Pistons through 5 games is plus 25.1. I'm not talking about his on-off defensive rating. I'm talking about when he's on the floor versus when he's off. The Pistons are 25 points better with Isaiah Stewart on the floor versus when he is off. 25 points. The next closest that plays rotation minutes is Simone Fontecchio at plus 9.2. Not really going to pay attention to that. Isaiah Stewart is a plus 25.1 difference. The player with the worst on-off difference of any rotation player is Jalen Duren, minus 12.5. Defensively, now that we can get to the defense, when Isaiah Stewart's on the floor defensively, the Detroit Pistons are 21 points better with him on the floor. When Jalen Duren is on the floor, they are 14 points worse with him on the floor so far defensively. Now look, it is a small sample size, but it matches the eye test. It matches what we thought about somewhat of these players before the season, and you're watching it play. When the Pistons have made their runs, it's happened with Isaiah Stewart on the floor and how well they play defensively. The simple fact of the matter is this. I can maintain 2 thoughts at once. I can maintain the thought of you need to be able to see how it looks with Ausar Thompson and see if they can actually craft that lamp to work. And if it doesn't, okay, then you clearly have your answer. But you at least need to be able to test it out, which they can't because Ausar Thompson is not cleared to play. So who knows if they'll even get the chance to test it out. But I can have that thought that maybe it could work with spacing and Ausar Thompson on the floor. I can have that thought while also thinking the Pistons are clearly better with Isaiah Stewart on the floor, and Jalen Duren has not improved nowhere near enough defensively to have a larger impact on the game for the Pistons so far through 5 games. I can have both those thoughts. So do I think that the Pistons should be trying to move on from Jalen Duren already? No. I think they'll have to make that decision by February. I've said that before the year. I thought they had to make that decision on Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren by February. That's why I had heard and understood all throughout the offseason that this was going to be a tryout. Now, obviously, the tryout's going really well for Jaden Ivey. We'll talk about him later. But Jalen Duren will have until February, I believe, around January, until they make that kind of decision. So 5 games is nowhere near enough to freak out or already make conclusions on it. However, like I said in the last episode, man, it's like a completely different team when Isaiah Stewart comes onto the floor versus when Jalen Duren's on the floor. It's completely different. It's immediately noticed. And the problem is, and I'm going to shout out a friend of the podcast, Joe Truck, who wrote in his Substack recap of this past win for the Detroit Pistons. He's 100% correct with this. Isaiah Stewart is perfect in his role. When you start to try to maximize him or start to go above his role, that's when his results and the value starts to decrease. So you don't want to really be playing Isaiah Stewart 35 minutes a game, which is why I don't believe playing Isaiah Stewart as your starting center is a viable option. Because the longer he stays out there, the more teams will start to force him to try to finish around the basket, the more they'll start to sink to the paint, the more that his defensive value will start to tank because I would say his defensive value is kind of is best in where he can give all-out energy within those small bursts, and as the longer stretches go on, it starts to decrease a little bit. He's not a player that you want as your starting five. He's someone that you love as your backup five, which we've talked about at nonstop on the podcast, but you don't want him to be the starting five. So, no, I don't think they should be benching Jalen Duren. I do think they probably should close with Isaiah Stewart, but starting, no, and it's too early to try to give up on Jalen Duren, but the early results are pretty damning and pretty, wide. Pretty noticeable. It's pretty crazy. So I'd like to see Jalen Duren with Ausar Thompson in the lineup because he just makes it better defensively. And I also can understand that he just doesn't have a good defensive lamp around him. However, while that's understandable, that's not stopping Isaiah Stewart from making the team look competent defensively. So it's a tough discussion. It's a discussion that I know that the front office is going to be tackling throughout the season, all the way up until the trade deadline. Because, like I said in the offseason to you guys, I said it over and over. I said it even earlier on in the season already, like last week. All offseason I told you guys that defensive play from the center position will be the biggest impact to the Pistons winning games. It won't be Jaden Ivey, even though, again, we'll talk about how great Jaden Ivey looks. It won't even be Cade Cunningham taking the big jump. Getting legit defensive play from their center position will be what has the most impact on the win-loss record. And you're watching it play out through the first 5 games of the year. When Stu's on the floor, they're murdering teams. Quite literally murdering teams defensively. When Duren comes onto the floor, it's a completely different story. And it's hard to avoid that. I like Duren's offensive game. I love his talent. He has a lot of potential. But defensively, it can't be this big of a gap. It just can't be. It can't be an immediate notice defensively with Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren. It can't be a nearly 30-point difference between the two. That's too much. It's too much to ignore. So my final answer basically is: do we have a Duren concern? I wouldn't say yet. It's only 5 games, but is it trending towards the direction of you might need to decrease his minutes and play Stu more? Yeah, it might be trending towards there, but we'll see how it plays out. Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter how you guys feel about this Jalen Duren conversation that everyone's having. Do you guys think you guys should be concerned about him? Is it too early to be concerned? Let me know all your thoughts. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Coming up, we'll talk about the fan favorite Jaden Ivey, who is playing absolutely tremendous, no doubt about it. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, that's at FanDuel.com, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I want to let you guys know again that we have a Locked On Pistons daily newsletter to go along with your Locked On Pistons podcast. Head over to LockedOnDaily.com and enter your email in. You'll get a Locked On Pistons daily newsletter every single day for you, Monday through Friday. I'll put the link in the description down below so you guys have an easier way of getting to it if you're interested in that. I've heard great things from people who have subscribed. They really enjoy it. It's a great way to support the podcast, and also gives you guys another form of content for the Pistons. I've heard nonstop good things from people who do have it. And obviously, if you have any suggestions of things you like added to it or things that can make it better, I'm all ears. So far, it sounds like that people really enjoy it. But if you have anything else, you can obviously let me know as well. And also, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Kuka Hill, where I'll be doing film breakdowns of the Detroit Pistons games, wins, and losses. I haven't had one over the last 2 games because it's been incredibly busy for me, but I will have a video out over the weekend, probably 2 videos for you guys over the weekend about Cade's turnovers and also what looks so good with Isaiah Stewart on the floor defensively. So stay tuned for all that. Jayden Ivey is absolutely, I think, the fan favorite on the team. I think Jayden Ivey has more fans than probably any other player on the team. So I know people are excited for me to be finally really, I mean, we've talked about Jayden Ivey a lot on the podcast already, but to really give him his own segment for how he's played in the first 5 games and talk about why he's been so impressive. I mean, and there's not, I don't need to go into, a large film breakdown through the podcast to tell you guys and explain to you guys how he's been playing so well. I mean, it's really just as simple as he is hitting his outside shot. His jump shot has completely come around so far through the first 5 games, and that right there unlocks everything for his game. Like, it's as simple as that. If he's able to shoot like this, it unlocks everything for him. Unlocks everything for him. Through 5 games, he is shooting 43% from deep on 5.6 attempts a game. Now, I don't expect him to stay at 43%. I expect him to regress to around, I think what his high-end outcome, what people would be really impressed with and happy with, would be around like a 38, 39%. 43% would be like elite shooting. So if he stayed at that, that would be crazy. But I don't expect him to be 43, but he doesn't have to be 43% for him to be a tremendous player. And that's what he's been for the Detroit Pistons so far. Averaging 21.2 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, 3.6 assists. He's shooting 47.5% from the field, like I just said, 43% from the three-point arc. He's averaging, 4.8 free throw attempts a game, shooting 75% from the line. I'd like to see that get up a little bit, but so be it. And he has a true shooting percentage of 58.5% through the first 5 games. His three-point shooting has been off the charts. And the corner three-point shooting that we talked about translating from the preseason that we saw, translating over to the regular season, has absolutely done that. He's been shooting the stripes off the ball. It's been absolutely crazy how well he's been shooting the basketball. And I mean, it's really, I feel like I said earlier, everything just stems off of the fact that he's able to hit outside shots at this high of a clip. It makes everything so much easier for him. He's also, through 5 games, shooting a career high on 2-point attempts, 50% on all 2-pointers. Now, I think he could even get that higher. I think Jayden Ivey could, actually, I won't put a number on it. I'll just say I think he could be even higher in that regard. I think he could get even better with his finishing around the rim. But so far, him and Cade have been the most impressive parts of the Pistons team through 5 games. And I said this like kind of as a throwaway comment on one of the podcasts recently, but the Pistons, and I don't mean it like completely literal, but if the Pistons were to lose the next 10 games, obviously, let's not take it too literal, but if they win the next 10 games or lose the next 10 games and Cade and Ivey are playing together like this and Ivey's looking this good, it will be, like, I honestly feel like it would be worth it. It almost would be completely worth it because figuring out whether Ivey could play with Cade Cunningham, whether Cade could play with Jaden Ivey, whether they could not just play together but thrive together was the main question of the offseason. And they are more than thriving together right now. They are playing exceptional with each other right now. And Jaden Ivey is playing out of his mind. And one of the other things that Jaden Ivey is really doing that I like to see, I'm sure Pistons fans like to see, Jaden Ivey will never be, I don't believe, a good defender. But you don't need him to be a good defender. You just need him to not be a horrific one like he was the first 2 years of his career. And so far, through the first 5 games, now it's 5 games, so everything, that's like I said with Jalen Duren, we don't want to make grand conclusions on anything. But through 5 games, he is giving more effort defensively. He is more locked in defensively than I have ever seen him at any other point of his career. He's much more active in passing lanes. He's I don't want to sit here and try and make it seem like he's some all-world defender, because he's still a below-average defender so far. But he went from being a horrible defender to just simply a below-average one. But that difference is pretty large that I've seen through 5 games. And it really just comes from effort and just being locked in on what's going on. That improvement on the defensive end, his three-point shot improvement as well, along with the fact that he's getting to the rim. Honestly, his rim percentage hasn't been that great still. I still think he could get even better around the basket, especially with the spacing that they are having. And once Tobias starts to hit more three-point shots, and especially once teams start to respect his own three-point shot even more, he should get even more clean looks around the rim. And I expect his rim finishing to get even better. Right now, according to Synergy, through 5 games, he's still below average at the rim, 29th percentile. However, on all jump shots, he's 67th percentile, and on all catch and shoots, he's in the 88th percentile. Now, look, those are incredibly small sample size. So, like, we're talking 30 possessions. It's hard to read completely into any of that as, like, a long-term. Like, you don't want to go too crazy over 30 possessions. But from what we've seen, simply, and not projecting, but simply just analyzing what we've seen through the 5 games, despite it being a small sample size, he has been absolutely tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. He's utilizing his athleticism and his quickness with the right amount of tempo. The Pistons, I feel like, are doing a better job, JB Bickerstaff, and I think even Cade are doing a better job of trying to get him the ball in transition. If they get a rebound, trying to kick ahead to him in transition and try to lead the break. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you don't get those great plays from him. You don't get those big-time plays from him if you don't go with some of the lows that comes with it. Yeah, will he drive into 3 people sometimes and turn the ball over? Sure. But if you don't accept that, you don't get the then 4 great plays that come along with it. You have to take the lows with the highs. And right now, the highs are way outnumbering the lows that are coming with giving him more freedom, by giving him the ball more, by letting him test more things, by letting him use his explosiveness a little bit more in transition, on fast breaks. He's being utilized exactly how everyone wanted him to be utilized all last year. JB's doing a good job with that. And the fact that he's being staggered at all times with Cade, so he's getting minutes with Cade and he's getting minutes with his own spaced out lineup, has led to really good things for them. Jayden Ivey, look, there's a lot of people who are going to say, "Koo, you've been a hater. Don't say anything good about Ivey." I don't think the people that say that, don't understand that my job is not to be a fan. My job is to cover the team. And I simply talk about what's happened. Last year, Jayden Ivey was not good. That was a fact. This year, he has been tremendous. And when he is tremendous, I'll continue to say it. He has been tremendous to start the year. He's been, I think, the Pistons' second best player. He's been incredibly important. In this backcourt that the Detroit Pistons are having so far to start this year, how they're playing together, it gives them a chance against any team with how well those 2 guys are playing off of each other. Jayden Ivey's been fantastic, man. If he continues to play like this, you give him a long-term contract and you build around him and Cade. No doubt. That's how good he has been. He has been extremely good. I want to see it play out for the majority of the year. You guys know I like to evaluate the season in quarters. However, I would be remiss to not sit here and say through 5 games that he's looked absolutely exceptional. He's been great. He's been absolutely great. I love the fact that him and Cade are thriving so much off of each other. And like I said, when those 2 guys are playing like this off of each other, with Jayden Ivey shooting the ball like he is now, it gives him a chance. It gives him a chance to get against all these teams. It gives him a chance, because when Cade leaves the floor, you got to deal with Ivey. When Ivey leaves the floor, you got to deal with Cade. And when they're both on the floor, they're making teams pay together. So, Ivey's been great, man. Ivey's been great, and if he continues to do this, the Pistons will have a fun season. He's been fantastic, man. All credit to Jayden Ivey. He looks like he's improved. The added muscle, by the way, I know this segment is going a little long, but the added muscle is showing itself off almost every possession. He has so much better body control. He absorbs context so much better, especially in the pick and roll when guys try to ride him and try to, he tries to put them in jail. They can't knock him all over the place when they're riding him on the way to the basket. He doesn't get knocked over or lose balance. The added muscle is showcasing itself almost every possession. So that was big for him. It looks like he's improved in just about every area of his game. And again, I still think he can get even better. He should be a way better finisher than he is right now. If he does that, it's going to be crazy. So he's been tremendous, man. And I'm happy for him, and I hope it continues going. That would be good things for the Pistons and the Pistons fan base. So let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about Jayden Ivey's season so far through 5 games. What are you most impressed with from Jayden Ivey? Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kukahill. When we come back, I just want to preview the Pistons' upcoming game against the New York Knicks and how they could give themselves a chance to win this game. I'm a procrastinator. I wait till the last second with quite literally everything, especially when it comes to buying tickets to my favorite event. But with Game Time, they save me from being a procrastinator. With other places, I don't get good deals. I end up with bad tickets. I end up just mad the entire event, disappointed the entire event. But with Game Time, I get last minute deals all the way up to the last minute and sometimes even after the event started. So I get good deals on my tickets. Along with that, I get views from my seat within the app before I purchase the tickets. So no longer you purchase tickets, get to the event, oh, this wasn't the greatest seat for me, now you're upset. No, with Game Time, you can see before you purchase the tickets what your seating looks like and if that seat is the best for you. It's why I love Game Time. They also have the lowest price guarantee, and Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is also covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Also subscribe to the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter to go along with your Locked On Pistons daily podcast. And also subscribe to my personal YouTube channel for film breakdowns of each Detroit Pistons game over at Kukahill on YouTube. So I want to preview real quickly this game for the Detroit Pistons up against the New York Knicks. How they want to play defense against the Knicks is going to be incredibly interesting to see. Through 4 games for the Knicks, they are the 3rd best offense in the entire NBA. They have a 119 offensive rating. And this past game that they just had was pretty damn impressive for the New York Knicks. They came back and defeated the Miami Heat in convincing fashion, I might add. And in this game, Karl-Anthony Towns dropped 44 points. 44 points. Now, I bring that up to say, what has been the Detroit Pistons' killer on defense? We saw it in the preseason. We saw it already through the first 5 games. It's teams who have a stretch big. They kill the Pistons. And specifically, they really cause problems for Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren really has a problem with guarding stretch bigs. And you're going against arguably the best shooting big in the NBA right now. He calls himself the best shooting big of all time. Now, I understand the numbers may support some of that he's trying to say. He's definitely up there in Cat. But this is a guy that if you give him open threes consistently on pops, I mean, he's just going to murder you. He'll just blood you out. Absolutely just blood you out. And he doesn't just shoot from the three-point line. He'll shoot farther back as well. He extends where you have to play defense. He extends it out to beyond the arc. Especially if you're playing drop coverage and Duren is lazy on the closeout, doesn't get out closing out quick enough. You're not just closing out to the guy who's at the three-point line. Cat could be like 5 feet beyond the three-point line. You got to cover all that ground as well. Against Jalen Brunson in the pick and roll, it's going to be tough. So how the Pistons decide to guard that is going to be incredibly interesting, and it's going to be the key to whether the Detroit Pistons can win this game. I think, I've said this over and over, I really don't care what defense the Pistons go against. I expect their offense to do good. That's where I'm at with their offense. Right now, through 5 games, they're 17th in the NBA. That's where I said around before the season, I expect them, they should at least be. I could see them being in the top 15 even. And this is without Tobias shooting well from beyond the arc, with some inconsistent play from Beasley, with some inconsistent or straight up poor play from Simone Fontecchio. The only shooter that's been consistent is Tim Hardaway Jr. And this is with the improvements from Jaden Ivey. Once your veterans start to play more consistent, like we saw in the fourth quarter against the Sixers, Once your veterans start to show up and play more consistent offensively, I think the Pistons offense, and I know that maybe people will say I'm being a little ridiculous with this. I truly don't think I am. I trust the Pistons offense with Cade, and now especially with how Ivey's playing. But before the year, it was about Cade, and I think Cade's making this jump we're seeing. But especially now with Ivey added onto it, with the spacing, once those guys start hitting shots along with how they're playing, like, I don't have concerns about the Pistons offense. They just got to hit open shots. No matter what defense they go against, I'm fine with it. Like, I expect the Pistons offense to be able to hold their own. It's all about their defense. It's all about their defense. And actually, you know what? I read the wrong numbers for you guys just now. I was reading their defensive rating. Their defensive rating jumped to 17th with this game against the Sixers. It was 26th before the game against the Sixers. Their offensive rating right now is 20th in the NBA. And that makes more sense. I was going to say 17th in the NBA despite how bad they're shooting from their veterans. That actually would be kind of crazy. But that makes a lot more sense. But the point stays the same. I expect the Pistons offense, once their veterans start to make shots, to rise up. They have enough talent offensively. This is an offensive roster. They should be fine offensively against whoever they go against. That's where I stand with that. How they defend this cat pick and roll with Jalen Brunson is going to be how they can win this game. And going back to the first segment with the conversation about Jalen Duren, this is why it's a tough conversation. Because it's going to be almost every single time you go against a stretch big, the argument's going to be, just play Isaiah Stewart and switch everything. Like, that's going to be the argument every time. And live with Cat trying to punish you on mismatches in the post. Like, that's what the formula is going to be. That's what everyone, I already know, that's what all of you guys are going to comment down below. It's what I'm thinking. It's probably what JB's thinking. It's what every fan's thinking. That when you go against stretch bigs like this, just play Stu, switch across the board, take away the pop, and try to take away threes. Like, that's what it's for. And when you have a stretch, or when you have a big in Isaiah Stewart, whose superpower defensively is his ability to switch across the board, like, that's going to be the easy answer, and probably the best answer every single time. But do you want to continue to sit Duren in those stretches? That's one. Two, will JB actually be willing to sit Duren consistently during those stretches, or is he going to do what he did against Boston and give him a chance to run the same coverage or hold his own defensively in the second half? Didn't work out in that game. And three, do you want to give Duren these reps at the beginning of the year, even if it leads to losses, to try to get better at it? Like, that's the questions you have to be able to answer if you're JB Bickerstaff and the coaching staff. Otherwise, like, depending on those answers, if you're just worried about winning the game, it's just play Isaiah Stewart. Like, quite honestly, that's what it is. Play Isaiah Stewart 30 minutes probably, switch across the board, and just deal with it and see what happens. That's the easy solution. So I'm really interested to see which way JB goes with that. But outside of that, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Happy Halloween, everybody. I hope you guys all stayed safe, and hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. And had a little bit more fun than I did. Look, after every job I've been to, this is the only job that I'm currently at, my day job, that doesn't allow you to dress up when you come into work. It doesn't let you hand out candy to customers. Like, you can't do anything fun at this job. Is that how it is at your guys' job? You guys got to let me know as well. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Locked On Pistons. Subscribe to my personal YouTube, at Kuka Hill, for film breakdowns of your Detroit Pistons. And also subscribe to the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Till next time, peace out.